well. I do Option minus to zoom out and Option plus on my keyboard to zoom in. And you can see View is lighting up then, so the hotkeys in there. So with a Mac, it's Command plus. Most likely with a PC, it's probably Control instead of Command. But a few hotkeys, which for me equal shortcuts for you to play with. Okay, so first I'm going to zoom in here. And you can see that this looks a little pixelated. And what I mean by pixelated is that it's unclear, it's a little bit fuzzy. So if I say pixelated, it usually means that it's not as best quality, but again, this is just a practice exercise, so I'm not too worried. But you can see how the banana is still clear and in focus. The kiwi is, where the tomato and the carrot are getting a little fuzzy there. So just watch out for those when you're trying to find images. So I want to come up here and I'm going to go to my elliptical marquee tool. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to click here and I'm going to click and drag out. And at the same time, I'm holding down Shift to get that perfect circle. And I'm still a marquee tool right here. So during this time, I can click and drag and move this to where I want it to. And now my thing is selected. But to move it over to my Melon JPEG, I have to go to my Move tool. And you'll see once I do that and there's a selection, you get a little pair of scissors with my Move tool. And that just means it's cutting it out. So if I was to keep it and just move it somewhere else, it would look like a white hole. But I'm coming over here and I'm clicking and dragging. I am not letting go until I get about to the middle of my melon, and then I drop it in. And that's how I usually work with selecting and then bringing over. You can copy and paste as well. It's just really about what you want to do. So this has become layer 1. It's really important to label your layers because you can have 100 layers in Photoshop easy depending on the project that you're doing. So it can get really confusing, especially if you have something this small on there, because every layer is made up of each individual item that you put on there until you start to merge and flatten, if that's what you decide to do. So we're going to double click and I'm going to name this Blueberry 1. And at least now I have some sort of inkling about what this is. So we're just going to keep the blueberry there for right now. But it was that simple to use that. So I'm just going to go back a few steps just to show you how to do that in Photoshop. You can do that in Edit, okay, and then step backwards. So it's one move and then two moves. The hotkeys for those is one move in Photoshop is Command Z, and then the other step backwards is Option Command Z and then Option Command Z. I'm not quite sure why Photoshop is so weird like that. Every other program you can just do Command Z a billion times. I prefer to do Command Z's, but when you have to do 2 to 3 to plus steps back, you want to do Option Command Z or Alt Command Z. Now to get rid of this, because we don't want those, what I like to call marching ants, the selection box anymore. I'm done with it. I don't want another blueberry. We can come up to Selection, Deselect, or we can just do Command D. And it's just really good to get into these hotkeys, especially when you want to go out into the workforce. Anything that can save you time is great. Okay, so let's move on. Now, with the banana here, let's try something else. So the marquee tools really honestly work the same as this does. So anything you want in proportion as you're growing out, like the rectangle, I mean, I can make it any which way I want to, but if I want it perfect square, you have to hold down Shift. Deselect again. So let's move on to something else. So when we're looking at our selection tools, what would be the best choice for this? We are on the lasso, the polygonal, and the magnetic tool. I believe the magnetic tool will probably be the best for this. So let's try that out and see how that works. And right there. All right, so we're going to go and we're going to try magnetic. So what happens here is that you drag it along as best you can. Now you can see if I get off my banana, it won't select just the ends that I require. So it can get really nasty looking, and you can get a weird selection like this. So with your mouse or your trackpad or your Wacom tablet, whatever you decide to use, you have to be a little bit careful and a little bit slow about how you approach this. And you can see all those little boxes that it's getting. Those are actually anchor points that are developing. And what's really nice here is that there is an extreme color difference for Photoshop between the yellow and the white, and that's really helping this magnetic tool process. But I'm definitely taking my time, making sure I get everything I want correct. So if this was on a yellow background with a yellow banana, it could be much harder. Now I know it was sort of quick, but right before I ended, I got this little circle. That little circle indicates that it is finding its end and its front, or its beginning, and it is completed. So now I'm going to drag this banana over. I'm going to go up to my move tool again, come up to my little melon man, and drop them on in there. And you can see I still have some white. Let me show you, besides using the erase tool, how you can get rid of that. But first I'm going to label this. So you could use the erase tool with this. You could blend it out. There's different ways you can do that. But what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to choose color range. And I'm making sure I'm on my banana. And I'm going to click this guy. And it is going to select all the bright things. Now you can see this is a light brown and this is a white. So you have to be careful. But what I can do is just make sure that I work with down here. So I'm going to come over to my erase tool. And again, if you, obviously, you might not know what all these mean. All you have to do is hover over and it will tell you. And I'm going to come over here. And this is quite a small brush. I can come up to my options and I can increase that brush and I can increase the harshness or the softness of it. And there I go. I'm just going to click and drag over it until I feel that it erased what it did. Now you can see here that it's erased a little bit of the yellow too because it picked up that bright yellow. So you just have to watch out for those. I'm just going to let it slide this time, but just be aware of that. That's why your selection precision needs to be on point from the very beginning to really help you with the fine details. So deselect, and there you go. That's fine for me for now. And I'm going to do deselect here. So again, the lasso, the magnetic lasso, you click and drag along. So let's do the polygonal. So that's a little bit more geometric. So we're going to come down here to our little bow tie pasta piece. And you can see how this will work. So what I'm doing, instead of just dragging along and letting the magnetic stick to it, with the polygonal, I have to go so far, click and drag. Now you see it's not going to get this perfectly because it is very geometric. So instead of getting more of a curve, it is going to have more of a box shape, but that's okay for this. And I'm just clicking every time I want to quit a point and start a point. So it really doesn't bend. Like if I was trying to do something I could do with the pen tool or another tool, and I just can't do that. So again, this is great for geometric-like things. Anything with sharp edges and no bends, so even though that noodle has a bend, I can't really do that. But again, this is just to show you what these things can do. And there I go. And clicking and dragging. Maybe I'll make that the nose. And you can see how choppy that is. And this would be a little bit harder to edit. I could still take out most of that white, but to make those not seem so extreme would be a little bit hard. Now, though I want to make it more of a mustachy, maybe like a nose thing, it's way too big, I think, and I want to make this smaller. So how I do that is I can come up to Edit, Free Transform. Now this is one of the things you'll be using the most in Photoshop. I use it all the time, so I memorized this early on. For Free Transform, it's Command T. Now with this, you never really want to pull from the middles. You always want to pull from the sides. And look how much awkward that looks now. So I'm going to go back. Actually, let me just, don't apply. So don't apply transformation. I'll take it back to original size, but Command T. Now, coming from the sides and holding down Shift. Again, Shift is going to be great for keeping everything in proportion, so don't forget that. Clicking and dragging in, I'm not letting go of my mouse. I'm dragging that in. Maybe a bit bigger. And I can also rotate it. So once you get to a certain point, that arrow will bend. And you can rotate that. I'm still not on Shift because I do want to adjust it a little bit. Shift is great for making it bigger, small, same proportion, but you can rotate it without it causing much harm without Shift. So there we go. That's the size I like there. And then Command D again for deselect. And then let's go to the lasso tool. So again, the lasso tool draws freehand selection borders, best for precision. So let's try something like this berry and see how that turns out.